Okay, so this sheet I gave out to you yesterday, which is the scaffold and the planning template. Everything that you see on the board today is basically on the structure, alright? So I've picked action planning. I think action planning is a really good one for you to all do because you all did it, alright? And it's probably the most work you did in terms of the leadership strategies that you used. Before we go any further, it's interesting when you start to get more complex answers is where you start off where you're talking about one leadership strategy, in this case it's action planning or AP, alright? But over here, there's other leadership strategies that you would have either used at the same time or started to pull in after you realised that your action planning needed it. So a good happy marriage with these action planning is self-management. Okay, and you'll see why. Another happy marriage is group control and communication. Okay, so group management strategies and communication comms. Alright, so keep that in mind. Moving on to this. So for the what part, action planning is just find a definition. If you use the definition off the internet, you must put the source of that information via a footnote at the bottom, or you need to put the website next to it, alright? The how and why section. This is where you tell me how you used it, give me many different examples, and also what you were hoping it was going to do for the effective functioning of the group. Remember we did that effective functioning yesterday, what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like if your group is working well. You are always referring back to that throughout the whole of your logs. So for me, we did lesson planning. We did the lesson plan. How do we do that? So give me a bit of detail. And why did you choose those particular activities? In terms of how did you think they were going to improve the functioning of the group? All right? Then we went outside and we practiced setting up and running through it 2 times. And we did this hopefully to improve our confidence when we got in front of the students. To find any weaknesses in my lesson plan or our lesson plans, and to understand and prepare for what my role in that was going to be, because one of the worst things you get down there and sort of get in front of the students and go, oh, you do this, no, you do this, no, you do that. You got down there and most of them knew exactly who was going to do what. But what you've got to do is pinpoint that as self-management as well. So bring that in and highlight that as self-management. Those are interrelationships. But you also need to tell me why you thought that was going to improve the functioning of the group. Alright? You then, when you got out your gear and got it ready the day before we went down, right? Why did we do that? Okay, so I'll put in brackets, it's to be prepared, not to be late down to St. Mary's, and to decrease stress on the day. We're not running around getting stressed out before we even get there. That is a form of self-management and action planning combined again, because you needed to make sure that you were managing yourself to get that done. And how does that, or how did you hope that was going to affect the functioning of the group? All right. So what? So this is the where you start to tell me what actually happened. So the positives of it. So just like any evaluation, you start off with the positives. We knew exactly what we were going to do and who was going to do it. An example of this was when I litter your writing with personal examples. Has to have lots of personal examples. And you can't talk about in generalities, you need to give specific examples. It improved my confidence, because confidence comes from experience plus preparation. You guys didn't have a lot of experience in front of students, so therefore you have to double down on your preparation. Alright? How does having confidence improve the functioning of the group? So how did you working into that situation, feeling a bit more confident and prepared, affect the functioning of the group? And how do you know? So give me some personal examples. It enabled us to be flexible. This is important for the functioning of the group because. So Levi and Connor had a good example. They got down there. I think both sessions they had to be flexible. One, because the first session Levi got down there and he had way less students than he thought he was going to have. So how did having the action plan in the background there help him? He's got some good stuff down there. The second session they were together, but they had to combine groups. Hey, to combine groups. So by having a good planner behind them, it enabled them to be flexible, and this improves the functioning of the group because, okay? Negatives. When we did the initial run through out there with me, we went straight into drills without developing rapport through introductions and explaining what we were going to be there for and why. Finished? This would have affected the functioning of the group because, right? So, by doing those things like introductions and developing rapport, how would that have negatively affected the group? Okay, I suggest you look up on YouTube something called Simon Sinek, that's his name, Simonsonek, work on the why. And his theory is most people will do what you want them to do as long as they understand why you want them to do it. All right? You guys do it all the time. I'll say, let's go and do this, and some of you will go, why? And that's fine, because you want to understand the why, and then you do it. You might not agree with the what, or really want to do the what 100%, but you'll do it if you understand the why. Then, adaptations, the final part. We did reflection on action. So we added an introduction and clear explanation of why we were there, and that helped because that's where you start to show me you went away, you thought about it, you reflected on the action, and then you changed it for the next time. And then the last one, another adaptation I made to action plan was when I did this because it helped the function group. Because another example there would be, can you, Levi, tell me what one thing you did when you first got down there? How did you change your lesson plan when you met your group and there was less students than you thought?
We'd run in a group to see what everyone's names were in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you change any of your lesson plan because you had less numbers? What did you change in particular?
Some of the games, like instead of playing St. John's rules,
Yes.
we had a game of touch.
Cool. And why did you do that? Because there was less numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
harder to do St. John's rules.
Cool. Harder is, so you think that would have improved the function of group controls? You don't have to tell me that. But that's a good example of how you reflected in action, in the actual moment. Alright? So you had to make a change. So that there is an example of how you would go through and do action planning. And then you've got to do another one of those for self-management. It could be communication, it could be group management, whatever. But essentially that's this type of thinking that you need. Really important that you, one, give personal examples and talk about how you use reflection in action and on action. Is there any questions before we turn the video off? So I'll turn it off.